Hello, everyone. Good to see all of you here. It is the Unfound live show for March 11th, 2024. I hope everybody is doing very well out there. I have a spectacular show for you tonight. I'm just going to, of course, we have it in the title. At least a few of the things that are on the agenda tonight. And of course, we're going to be going over another Panky letter. I've already opened it and read it. I'm not going to be able to read all of it. I will be able to read, let me fix that, read some of it. I'm going to be talking a little Tom Brown information. Going to be talking about a woman who got stuck in a cargo container. Going to be talking, finally, it's been on my agenda for a while, about this cop in Australia who was a murderer. I want to talk about the disappearance of Caleb Harris, and we have a connection with Assistant Cherie on that. She's very familiar with this area. And I want to talk about a disappearance that happened 12 years ago in Alaska regarding a kind of, maybe call a marathon runner. And hopefully I can also get to a little bit about the Uvalde, the city of Uvalde, and the exoneration of all these officers of this 2022 school shooting. I, of course, have some opinions on that. So a lot to get to tonight. Hopefully, I will get to all of it. This live show, even though there's technically not a time frame or there's no cutoff. I suppose I could go all night if I wanted, as long as my voice holds up. But usually, it's about 2 hours. Really, that's about all my voice can take, talking nonstop for that amount of time. So we try to squeeze it all into about 2 hours. And I thank everybody who tunes in here on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern when it is live. And then I also want to thank all of you who have made this, who have subscribed to this as a podcast when it comes out as an audio show on the day after every Tuesday. Before I go any further, I hope everybody will give this production a thumbs up if you are on YouTube, or if you're listening to this as a podcast. Please give this show, this podcast, a nice 5-star review on iTunes or wherever else you are listening to it, just like I'm sure you've already given a great review to Unfound, the podcast that comes out every Friday. So as you are watching and listening tonight, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. Going to keep saying that. We did miraculously get over 17,000 subscribers this past week. It was a long time coming. And so hopefully we'll do a little bit this year. We can keep moving to 18, 19 and get to that, what I would call the magic number of 20,000. I don't know if this is ever going to be a 100,000 subscriber channel, but we'll just keep trying to get those numbers up. And one of those ways that can help is if you give this show every Monday night thumbs up. And of course, any other videos that are posted to YouTube, you got to give all of those a thumbs up as well. And if you'd like to monetarily support, if you really like the content that is provided here at Unfound, please consider going to patreon.com/Unfound podcast, or contributing at paypal.me/Unfound podcast, or hitting join on the YouTube channel. Those are some ways. And then while you're listening or watching live tonight, you can hit the little $ symbol if you're on YouTube, and you can contribute that way as well. And I appreciate all of it. So let's see who is in here just to get started tonight. And then we'll kind of bebop back and forth between I'm going to get a couple personal things out of the way and then bebop back and forth between Unfound info and what we would call, I guess, non-unfound information, true crime information. So, Charlie, good to see you. Good to see you. Hello, Charlotte and Hazel. Good to see all of you. Jasmine. What up, Facebook? Cherie. Good to see you, Cherie, being this week's star for the team episode. And everybody complimenting Cherie. Glenn, how are you? Hutchison Island, Florida. Yeah, I wish I was back in Florida, Glenn. Everybody can see I'm not there. I'll get to that in a moment. And yes, I love the live show. Thank you, Mary Jane. It's very nice of you to say. Mary from Maryland. Well, Maryland, that would make sense that you live there, Mary. Yep, 17,000. Suzanne, good to see you. I'm literally the only one on Facebook watching this. Well, it just seems, yeah, well, it just depends where everybody is. And, but I agree, maybe Facebook is a more popular way to watch it. I think people have just become accustomed to it. But I want to give people, that's why we started using StreamYard, to give people the option. Nothing wrong with watching on Facebook. Totally fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, totally fine. All right, let's just get into a couple things that have gone on with me since we all got together last Monday. Of course, last Monday I had just gotten here to Pennsylvania, seeing my dad, and it has been an eventful week, to say the least. And I don't know how long I'm going to continue to be here. One of the things that's greatly affecting that is that my dad was in a little bit of a car accident. Nobody was hurt or anything, and I'm not even sure it was even his fault. Very well could be that it was 50-50 on this one. I was not with him when that happened, but he got the front bumper taken off his Hyundai Santa Fe, and the fender got messed up. Car was still totally drivable and everything. So we had to take it to the collision auto repair shop, the body shop, on Thursday morning. And so his car is over there right now. Luckily, I drove up here, so he did not have to rent a car. So we've been driving my car, and my car is probably like, what is going on here? Why are you driving me in this cold weather? What is going on? But so that happened once again. Hard to say. I was not there. I think my dad knows that a little bit, but I also think that the person who was in the wreck with him was going way over the speed limit. So I don't know in the end how that's all going to be divvied up. But of course, my dad has insurance. The other person had insurance. Luckily, it wasn't somebody who was riding around with no insurance, luckily. And it'll all get figured out that way. And like I said, being that I wasn't there, it sounds to me like a very 50-50 situation. Both people probably not doing things that are very smart, but I still insist my dad is a spectacular driver. I will stand by that until I see otherwise. So there's that. And then I've just been doing, we had the garage door break as soon as I got here, which was weird. A spring broke on it, and then one of the wires with the sensors was messed up, so I had to resplice that. And then the ice machine in his refrigerator was weird, so I had to work on that for a little while. So we've had some things go on since I showed up here. And yeah, today we went for a long drive around. We went back and we went to my mother's grave site out in Spring Church above Apollo. And Dad went and collected his paperwork for his taxes. He was getting his taxes done. And so we went and picked that up today. And we just kind of rode around. And you actually got down a couple roads that I'd been not down before over there in Armstrong County. And what else? And then so coming up, like on Wednesday morning, I'm going to be taking him for a couple tests at a hospital down in Pittsburgh. Not sure how that's going to go, but Guys, I would say for 87, my dad is pretty lively, very alive, very capable. Mind is still very good and everything. Just hanging out with him for this week. Other than that, we just kind of hang out. I always make sure to make time to watch Jeopardy, maybe Wheel of Fortune, but certainly Jeopardy with him every night. And we watch a lot of Seinfeld episodes. And we were watching Casablanca, the movie Casablanca last week. We were watching City Slickers last night. So those are some of the things, but he still thinks that I work too much. Every time I say, well, Dad, I got to go do some work, he always thinks I can put it off. So that's what's been going on. But it's very, very cold, and it's been snowing some. And I've been doing my singing. I go up to the, they have like this clubhouse area, a separate building. And I'll go up there at 10 at night when nobody's there, and there's like a key code to get in. And so I do my singing practicing. So I'm getting that done while I'm here. So that's all good. And that's going really well too. So that's some of what's been going on. It's just been kind of weird. I get here. The refrigerator does something weird. The garage door does something weird. Dad gets in a very light accident. I guess you never know what's going to go on here. He had a guy come up last week that he had taught in school that has done some investing for my dad. So I got to meet him. And it's just been what's going on here. And I tell you, the week just flew right by. I don't know where the time goes. But like I said, probably, I can't leave until my dad gets his car back. And we did talk to the collision place again. And unfortunately, his insurance company, Geico, has not gotten back to them yet regarding approval for all the repairs that are going to be needed to be done. So it may be a while before he gets his car back. And I'm, of course, not going to leave until at least that happens. He drives my car. He hasn't really driven my car that much, really, though. But he drives my car just fine. And maybe just, as for anything else, maybe I haven't really talked to him yet. Maybe I'll get together with my buddy Brad this week, one day. He still lives in Leechburg. He used to live in Las Vegas when I lived there, but he's back in Leechburg. Maybe I'll get together with him. And my sister is actually on a trip to Europe. She'll be there for what? Charlie, how long is your mother going to be in Europe? We can put that in the post. Yeah, it's Charlie's mother. You see Charles in the chat. It's his mother, my sister. She and her husband going to like Germany and Czech Republic, some Eastern Europe, Austria, that area. And so I think it's at least 10 days. So I really don't know if I'm going to leave before she gets back or not. I have no idea. Maybe not. But my brother, Michael, did come up last Wednesday in the evening, and we had a good time. We went out to eat and shared some good stories and everything. So I got to see brother Michael, and maybe I'll get to see him again before I head back to Florida. And just one more thing. Very excited that, and I know this is maybe a weird way to bring like true crime and everything into this, but I was so excited for Robert Downey Jr. to win his Oscar last night. And the funny thing is, I've not even seen the movie yet. I know it's on one of the streaming services, but I don't have it. And I didn't go watch it in the theater. I'm really not much of a theater goer these days. I probably should have, but did not go to see it. I haven't been in the movie theater. Last movie I think I saw in the theater was maybe Top Gun Maverick, maybe. I think that might have been the last one. But I was excited to see him win. And I think everybody over the last 20 years has gotten to watch, his transformation. Of course, he's been in the spotlight really since he did Iron Man in about 2008. And of course, we all know he was in Zodiac. He was in Tropic Thunder, which is like I think one of my favorite comedies of all time. That he got a nomination for that. But I will admit, in doing the job that I do here at Unfound, that Robert Downey Jr. at one time in his life was very much like a lot of these missing people that we talk about. Had addictions, could not get his life on track. If you know a lot about Robert Downey Jr., it was his own father who started him on doing, drugs and giving him stuff like when he was like 8 years old and everything. I mean, you just can't even imagine it. And so when I think about Robert Downey Jr. turning his life around like he has, you just wish that these people who we've discussed on Unfound, and we know, of course, some of them have been discovered deceased, maybe someone like a Daniel Villarreal or Robbie Hurt and a few others, that had they somehow been able to see their way through their addictions and the problems that they were having. I'm not saying they would have been an Oscar-winning actor or anything, but you always have hope that these people can see their way through and turn their lives around and become good people without addictions and contributing to society, be fantastic people, fantastic fathers, mothers, parents, employees or supervisors or whatever else. And I think that Robert Downey Jr. is proof that that can be done because he virtually had everything working against him. His father got him into it. It sounds to me like Robert Downey Jr. had a lot of people around him who were yes people, just going along with whatever he wanted to do. And it took it upon himself. He spent a lot of time in jail that he's been more than honest about. In fact, he even mentioned that during his Oscar speech last night. But this is one of those things. Like I said, every time we cover a particular type of missing person on Unfound, I will admit that I think about Robert Downey Jr. Because for some people who may not realize this, and I realize that the demographic for Unfound in virtually all true crime programming, probably the people are old enough to remember when Robert Downey Jr. He was an up-and-coming star, late 80s into the 90s. He was nominated for Chaplin. But already by that time, he's already well into his addictions and self-destructive behavior and everything else. And then he totally ruined the 90s, and he had gotten a part on Ally McBeal that was kind of like billed as his way as a comeback, and then he blew that. Really, if anybody would have, if you were like around in like 1998 or 1999, and somebody from the future would have came back and say, you know what, in 2024, Robert Downey Jr. is not only he's still alive actually, but he's winning an Academy Award, and he's like the second highest grossing actor of all time in the movies that he's been in. And that he's married and he's over his addictions and on and on and on and on and everything. Nobody would have believed that. No, somebody came from the future back to 1999. We always saw, this person's certainly not from the future. This is some sort of hoax, of course. But it happened. And I will continue to remember that when we cover people like Robert Downey Jr., men or women, who have a lot of the same characteristics, and just wondering, what could have been. So I did not watch the Oscars, really not my thing, but I've followed his career for a long time, because I, of course, go back to the 1980s. I remember him being in Weird Science. I remember him being in Less Than Zero. I remember The Pickup Artist. And he's a Gen Xer. He was born in 1965, so he's 5 years older than me, so that all makes sense. and then the downfall of the 1990s. So this is everything that kind of goes in my mind regarding all of this. So there you go. So congratulations to Robert Downey Jr. I'll be very interested to see what is next on his plate. I know he has some sort of movie where he plays different parts, but that's coming out on Netflix or whatever. I'm wondering what he's going to be in next in the theaters. I think it's going to be another Sherlock Holmes movie, but we'll just have to see what else he's going to do. And I still say Tropic Thunder, like I said, probably has moved into the number one spot of my favorite comedy of all time. But if you really, really, really want to have a good time with that movie, if you have the DVD, which I do, watch it with the director's commentary. And Robert Downey Jr. does stay in character as the character in the movie through almost all of the director's commentary. And it is fantastic. And Jack Black is also there. Ben Stiller. Is it the three of them? Yeah, who are doing commentary for that movie of the DVD. And it is hilarious with Robert Downey Jr. staying in character. It is fantastic. So I urge you all to check that out if you haven't yet. All right, so let's see. Now that I've gone through all that, let's see what everybody is saying here. And hello, I hope Dad is doing okay. Thank you, Hazel. He is. He's doing fine. He's doing great. Hanging out with him. Yeah, when I'm here, really what it does is I just make a lot of things easier. He's a very capable guy. But I just, I make some things easier for him that can be more quickly done while I'm here. Hello, Ferry. What's going on? Adriana, your podcast is the best. Only Trace Evidence and True Crime Brewery come close, but Unfound is best. Well, Adriana, you are making my day. Thank you. I promise to continue to work hard. I never take anybody's liking of the podcast for granted. I'll just continue to work hard and continue to earn those nice words. Thank you, Adriana. Marty's here, fashionably late. Charlie says my cousin's wife got into a wreck about 2 weeks ago and was T-boned. She had to have half of her. Oh my goodness. Oh, Charlotte. I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, my dad's wreck was not like that. He could drive his car home. It was, yeah. That is so bad, Charlotte. Yeah, so Diane is going to be in Europe a couple weeks. Okay, thank you, Charlie. I had to get here an hour earlier today. Luckily, I heard you guys have gone into daylight savings. Yes, we have. I can't stand it. I love daylight savings. I love it staying lighter into the evening myself. Some people don't like that. Oppenheimer's on Peacock channel. Yeah, I don't have Peacock, unfortunately. I'll get to see it one of these days, I'm sure. And when do you guys, I'm not sure about times changing. Marty says it's freezing. I know where you live, Marty. That makes sense. Hello, Kathy. What's going on? Good to see you. Marty says, always a fan of Robert Downey Jr. Very talented he is. Yeah, I remember him back in school. Yeah. Malagar is arrived. Thank you, Malagar. Thanks for arriving. Hazel says RDJ has done a great turnaround. He was on a bad downward spiral for a while. Credits his wife for loving him back to good health. Yep. See what good women can do for a man. Yes. Yeah, I guess, Hazel, of course, as all of you know, I'm still looking, or maybe I'm not looking at all. Tropic Thunder's classic fit. Oh, yeah. Tom Cruise was excellent in that movie, too. Unfound is my... Thank you, Charlotte. That's very kind. All right. Let's move on into the true crime body of the show tonight. And although I guess we already did kind of touch on a little true crime, me kind of equating Robert Downey Jr. with a lot of the people that we feature on Unfound. Let's go right to the Lucinda Hues poll. And like I said, I know when I was on to explain this, I think I have to do this. I know that when I came to the microphone last Monday, eventually I said that it might be a very good chance that Angie Arnell's disappearance might be revisited on March 8th. I changed my mind because I never want it to appear as if I am being opportunistic in any way. And I know that Marianne died early last week, maybe Saturday or something, maybe a couple days, one or 2 days before the live show happened last Monday. And at the time, it seemed like a good idea. But then the more and more I thought about it, I just kind of ruled against it. But I have said that we will revisit Angie Arnell's disappearance before this year's over as a change. Just seemed, I don't know. Just like I said, I didn't feel like the timing was, I guess there's nothing legally, morally, or ethically wrong with it. It just felt a little sour to me. So we're never going to forget Angie's disappearance. We're all going to remember how she got screwed over by the justice system, how her husband, his story is as thin as thin can be. But I promise that before the year is over, we will revisit Angie Arnell's disappearance, and we will make sure that we mention Marianne in that episode. So when will the next revisitation episode come? Well, it happen. It just depends. But usually we do about 3 a year. So as long as and I've already done the interview for this Friday. Tomorrow I'm doing the interview for next Friday. And I'm pretty sure I know what the disappearance is going to be for the last Friday of March. And so then we'll get into April. We have a Q&A, the annual Q&A episode coming up. We have the next update episode coming up. And we've been, and I've been talking to quite a few people. So probably, of course, it all depends on things. Probably this summer will be the next revisitation episode. And then my guess is, as long as we can keep chugging along smoothly, that we'll have another one in the fall sometime. But getting back to Lucinda Hues, the reason I picked her, as I explained already in the episode, was just because of this back and forth that I had with the director going back to December regarding that series that will eventually come out here in August. So that's kind of, it's been on my mind, or disappearance has been on my mind since December, maybe also because it is a Tampa area disappearance that might have something to do with it. And so that's why I chose that one. So as far as the Lucinda Hues poll, which was posted in the discussion group, was she killed by someone she knew? Yes. In the think tank, and if you'd like to become a member of the think tank, everybody who's in it loves it. Patreon.com/Unfound podcast. You want to just sign up for it now. The think tank, pretty much the same. I think in the think tank, maybe a little more open. If we're to think maybe that Lucinda was going like the direction of the women that she was hanging out with that night, being involved in some sex work, and this Larry Moore guy being a pimp and everything. Could it be that Lucinda was thinking about going that direction as well? Then I guess it does open up the idea that if there was foul play, yes, it wasn't somebody that she knew. It was just some guy that she met that night at the Sharp Howl Lounge. And so the think tank, a little more mixed. But for me in the blog, I did write a blog for it back in 2017, 2018. But I kind of did an updated version of that blog at Patreon. Once again, Unfound, patreon.com/Unfound podcast. Just look at your screen right there and you see it. I have to admit, originally, the person that I was most suspicious of was not Lucinda's, but Linda's husband, who was there that night. I'm a little curious as to, well, the women left, But what did he do? Did he leave with them? Was he still there with Lucinda still being there? Why would she stick around if her friends were leaving? And would also, though, this is like years of experience now looking at it. I just don't know how good Lucinda's marriage was. Listening to the episode again, looking at my notes from way back then, she's 17, she's married, she has 2 kids, and she's going out with these friends of hers who doesn't sound to me like are doing her any favors. I realize that we talked about in the think tank, there does seem to be a discrepancy because in the interview, Deanna, her daughter, said that her mother went out, did the laundry, came home, then went back out again. And of course, the question is, well, if she came home, why didn't she take the laundry out of the car? I'm not sure it happened the way Deanna said it, because I went back and looked at articles that were written about Lucinda's disappearance at the time in 1984, and there are quite a few. They say that she went out that night to do laundry and never came back. And that would more fall in line with the reason that the laundry was folded in the back of the car, because when she goes home, she would take the laundry out of the car. She didn't do that. So, once, I want you to know that's what I personally believed happened, that she went out to laundry and then did not come home. And then we have to start thinking, what kind of person does that? Man or woman, teenager or 35-year-old? Just goes out to do laundry and then suddenly they're at some club run by the mob. And that's what led me to believe, well, if she's not happy in her marriage, then that opens up a wide range of, a wider possibilities. And it would make her more likely to consider doing some prostitution or running off with some other guy or choosing to go with some guy and not making some very good decisions. So that's what really stuck out to me, I think, the second time around, in contrast to the first time around. I still think that Linda, not Lucinda's, but Linda's husband, one of these co-workers or friends, whoever they were, I think is still the most viable person, because we just don't know what he did. It sounds like he was still there, even though his wife Linda and this Nika left. It sounds to me like he was still there. Then, what's going on? Of course, the big hang up is her stuff in the men's restroom that was finally turned in at Busch Gardens. And we threw a lot of ideas around regarding that in the think tank. But if you want to find out what was said there, you got to sign up. Patreon.com/Unfound podcast. All right. Now, of course, before we are done tonight, I will let you know what this Friday's disappearance is going to be. Moving on to some other things, I want to remind all of you that this Friday or this Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, as is usually the situation, over on the Fischler College of Education and School of Criminal Justice YouTube channel, we're going to have the Dr. T show once again. I will be appearing. You'll see me sitting right here in this chair, in this room with this microphone. And we do this once a semester, and I get to do it a little different this month because of where I am. I'm doing an anatomy of a disappearance, but we're going to use the premise, because I don't use any of Unfound's disappearances. I think that is a little too touchy. So I just use myself. What if I went missing? What if I had gone missing while driving from Florida to Pennsylvania? So I went through the outline and everything. I've sent it over to Dr. Telesco. I sent some pictures that we're going to be using. If you'll remember going back to last semester, so the end of last year, I just used the example that I was supposed to show up for the show at 7 o'clock. And I never, hit the Zoom link and didn't appear or anything. So we're going to make it a lot more complicated this time around, where I'm driving 1,300 miles, and it took me about 15 hours and 40 minutes, although it should have only taken me 15 hours and 20 minutes. I spent an additional 20 minutes in Tampa due to a wreck. But 1,300 miles, 15, let's just say in a half hour, 15 hours and 30 minutes, and 7 different states. Who knows how many counties and jurisdictions I went through during that whole time. Of course, although I did stop for gas twice, I could have gotten away with only stopping for gas once. A lot of things makes it very, very complicated. And then on top of the fact I'm by myself, a large part of the last part of the trip was at night. So I'm going to get into all that. How complicated could that have been had I not reached Pennsylvania? And what would be the natural steps to go about trying to figure out what happened? What would my dad have done? Who would he have called? And everything else. So I just, when we do these anatomy of disappearances, I am just putting it on myself because, like I said, I don't want to use any of Unfound's disappearances and everything because, like I said, it can be a little touchy. So there you go. So don't forget, this Thursday on YouTube, Fischler College of Education School of Criminal Justice channel, 7 p.m. Eastern, me and Dr. Telesco. Let's see, going back. Lisa says, I'm late. Eagle Scout mom's meeting tonight. That's totally fine, Lisa. You don't have to apologize. What do I say, Lisa? The only person who's not allowed to be late is me. Hazel said the Amanda Dennis situation was mind-boggling. Lucinda's certainly is. Now, we should note there have been people out there who have claimed to be missing people who weren't. In fact, the one that comes off the top of my head that I mentioned in the episode was Bonnie and Jeremy Dagus, that there was this guy, this troll, who bothered Bonnie's family for years, saying that he was Jeremy Dagus when obviously he wasn't. So that in of itself, certainly rare, but there's many examples out there. But that Amanda Dennis actually went back to Lucinda's family pretending to be her. And then on top of that, they accepted her. That is something. So yes, you're certainly right, Hazel. Rockford, based on where items were found in her choice of company, I find it likely the Hues was into prostitution. I'm 100% confident their husband was her imposter. Knew her imposter wasn't hers because, come on, man. Yeah, and we did talk about that. Rockford, as everybody's looking in the chat, Rockford is a member of the think tank. And those are just some of the comments that he and others made last night. So once again, it's a very, very exclusive group. Being in the think tank, you're going to feel very, very special if you sign up for it. Marty loves the think tank. And then Rockford says, I hasten to add that I empathize with what he went through, but that shouldn't stop us from being logical, even if it leads to unpleasant conclusions. I would like to think that we don't hold anything back here at Unfound. I think that by now you know that I'm not afraid to ask tough questions of the guests. And Shree's putting up the link to Thursday's appearance on the Dr. Telesco show. So everybody should just copy and save that right now. Charlotte asks me, Ed, did you ever hear about the podcast about the high school teacher who helped a student solve a serial murder case? I did talk about that some weeks ago, Charlotte. Yes, I did. I do know about that. I'm guessing I talked about that sometime here in 2024. The time flies, but it was certainly within the last couple of months, Charlotte. Yeah, thank you, Hazel and Marty. The Real coming to us from Australia. Where you been, The Real? Good to see you. Great to see you. Remember the girl purported to be Madeleine McCann? That got a bit cringeworthy. It certainly did, The Real. That's a very good example. Thank you for bringing that one up. So we know that it happens. And, of course, most of the time we know that these people, they know they're lying, pretty much. Of course, some of them may not have everything totally going on upstairs. But I'm under the impression these people certainly know that they aren't the missing people, and they just love the attention and everything else. That's okay, Charlotte. Like I said, you're going to have to go back through some of the live shows to find what I had to say about that. I just can't name off the top of my head what live show it was. It just seems to me that it was one that was done here in 2024. Okay, so that's that. Let's move on to this. Let's talk about moderator Cherie for just a little bit. Did she or did she not do a fantastic interview that came out today? I really enjoyed that. Of course, is the last interview of an assistant that will be done. Maybe we'll revisit that topic a few years from now. We'll see how everybody has progressed from 2024. But that was a good time. And I think I think there are a few things that you should take away from getting to hear from Carrie, Emily, Eric, and Cherie. First of all, what comes to mind is they are all very, very different. Very, very different types of people, different types of personalities, interests, their educations, their professions, and everything else. They've got a wide range of people who really help me behind the scenes. But also what you realize is there's no doubt that they are all fantastic people. Fantastic people. And as I've written, as I've said, just in general in presentations, and then I think I've even told all of you that when it comes to starting your own podcast, I don't care what the topic is. True crime, sports, politics, it doesn't matter. The way you judge whether you have a great podcast or not is not by how many downloads and everything else. Obviously, you need those. But you can judge the quality of your podcast on if other people want to help you with it. And then on top of that, what, how high of a quality are these people? Because we know there's certainly people, especially in true crime, I would think, where, they want to help out some podcast or some host, but only because they want the inside story. They just want to be in the in crowd. They're not doing it for anything other than for them to get their own information and maybe take it to Web Sleuths and just feel like they're more important than other people. And certainly there are people out there. And certainly I've run into those types of people who have communicated with me different times, maybe wanting to be assistants. But as you can tell with Carrie, Emily, Eric, and Cherie, that is certainly not the situation. And for anybody out there, maybe you're just listening, maybe you're just finding Unfound for the first time, or maybe you've been watching or listening for a little while, and you're not sure what to make of me. Maybe you've seen pictures of me with my long hair. Maybe you've heard me talk about my musical tastes. Maybe you find my profile on imdb.com. Maybe you do a Google search for me and find out this or find out that. And I want you to know I never Google my name because I don't want to be scared like that. So you're wondering, well, what kind of guy, he has these, he does these interviews, does his show, podcast a little bit different way, these long interviews and all this different stuff, very different than most of the other true crime podcasts out there and everything. What kind of guy is this? I think that maybe if you're not sure about me, then you should certainly be sure about my assistants who have done interviews over the last 4 weeks. There's no doubt after listening to all 4 of them, they're fantastic people. So I certainly, one of the ways I like to be judged is by who is around me, who wants to be around me, who do I get along with. So if you have any doubts about me or anything, just look at these fantastic people who did these interviews over the last 4 weeks. And I think you could tell that Unfound is, run by very solid people. Very solid people. And like I said, going back to the beginning of this, not only solid people, but they're very different. Very different types of people and people from different backgrounds. Of course, I mean, Eric has his doctorate, you know. And still, we all get along very well, really work well together. And I couldn't be happier with all of them, And still, though, we're maybe going to be adding on 1 or 2 assistants throughout the year. I certainly could use a couple more. As I've stated, I'm looking for a couple people. I think I might have found one, maybe, Marty, huh? But I'm always looking for good people. And I like to, as all of the assistants know, I like to test them a little bit at the beginning, as Emily talked about, and just to see how much work they're willing to put in, and that's how I weed people out. It's I give the example. I know this, I think of the example of Kiss. Of course, Kiss originally was Peter Criss, Ace Frehley, Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, and then Peter Criss and Ace Frehley got too involved in drugs and booze. And then we had, a bunch of different guys come in. We had Eric Carr. We had Bruce Kulick. And then eventually came around to like the late 80s and the early 90s. They got Eric Singer as a drummer, who was a very accomplished player by that time. He'd already been in the band Badlands and done some other work. But then they also picked up this guitarist, Tommy Thayer, who continues to be their guitarist to this day. And if you've ever seen any interviews with him, he's a fantastic guy. Fantastic. But what happened was, this is how, people do this. He wanted to be in Kiss. He thought that he could take what would be considered Ace Frehley's spot, playing lead guitar. And what did Gene and Paul have him do first? Paint their houses. That's how you weed out people. There are many guitarists out there. A lot of guitarists, a lot of great guitarists out there. But what guitarist is willing to paint houses for a while to get into a band? That's how you find out if somebody really, 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 really wants to do it or not. Because guitarists are a dime a dozen. So when it comes to getting into Unfound and being an assistant, it's kind of a little bit what I do. Maybe not as difficult as painting houses, but I just want to see, are these, I'm going to give them some tough tasks and see if they can complete them. If they can, then they're in. But you're amazed how many people don't follow through. So, and of course, as you know, Carrie, Emily, Eric, and Cherie followed through, and I'm happy to have them. So let me see. Sorry, I must have missed it. Hey there. Cherie will be blushing. I'll be watching that tomorrow. I have no doubt. It was fantastic. Great interview with Cherie. MT, what's going on to MT? Love the assistant interviews. Once again, Unfound doing something no other podcast is doing. Great stuff. Got to do it. I mean, we were due. We did those back in, I think, 2020, I think right around COVID time, when it just something that came to mind. Of course, right when COVID happened, it certainly got a lot tougher to reach out to people, but because a lot of people were scrambling. But everybody loved it back in 2020. It seems they're loving it in 2024. Rockford says, look at this. Look at this. The only thing that gave me pause about you, Ed, and still does, is that you're a Steelers fan. Tough for a Raider fan to swallow, but you have enough other fine qualities that give you a pass. Well, you know what, Rockford? Being that they picked up the Wilson guy, I have to say that I'm not too thrilled about it. I'm not a big fan of him at all. So maybe I'll just be like a very secret Steeler fan now, Rockford. Sheree says, Eric is so down to earth, though. He doesn't have an air of pretension. I think good people like to work with good people, proud to be a part of the team. Hazel says, great taste you have, Ed. Discerning. Thank you. Also, building trust. That was essential for me. Yeah. Thanks, Sheree. And then MT, have a great team. Thanks, MT. So, yeah, that came out today. If you haven't listened to my interview with Sheree yet, she did a great job. It's funny. All four of the assistants were very nervous about being interviewed. And I don't know. I think they all went as well as could be. But and a lot of all the guests that I interview, they're nervous too. But I want all of you to know, I get nervous before every interview too. I mean, you never know how they're going to go, no matter how much planning you have with them. And I want to make sure I ask the right questions. Don't forget anything. I hope that there are no technical issues. So I get nervous too. So, but all those interview, they were all the assistants were nervous, even though we all know each other very well. They were all at least a little bit nervous. Okay, let's move on to, let me just answer, being that she's in here and we're almost halfway, and then I just don't have to worry about not having time for it. Charlotte, Charlotte, who is in the chat tonight. Ed, what do you think about there being so many kids that have gone missing lately, and some of them have been found murdered? Some of them are still missing. It is so sad to me. Charlotte, it's just hard for me to tell. Have there been more kids going missing? I mean, obviously we do know a lot of kids go missing. I think, Charlotte, that it's happening all the time, but it just depends on how the media covers it. And I have as a member of the media, I can't deny that I'm not. I am a member of the media in the United States. And I continue to be disgusted about all of it. Whether it's talking sports, entertainment, politics, the weather, all of it. And I would like to think that I do this podcast in a way that I think reporting should be done. So when it comes to the news reporting on kids disappearing, are there more than it's all horrible. Every one of them's horrible. But is it any more than at any other time? Is there, over the last 6 months, have more kids gone missing? I don't know that to be factually true. And the truth is, we're not really going to know if that's factually true until somewhere down the road. If the names end up staying on National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or on NamUs, or on the Charlie Project, I don't know if we can come to any conclusion right now whether it's any worse than at any other time. So it's just hard for me to say, Charlotte. So what do you think? So I don't know what to think about it. I just don't know if that's factually true or not. It very well may be perceptually true because of the coverage, but all of that can be manipulated in 101 different ways. So I just have to wait that out and see a year from now what the stats say. Was it really bad over the last few months here? Starting 2024, there were more kids murdered or missing than at this time last year. If it is, then certainly we need to have a talk about that and why that could be. I just don't know if that's true right now. So, but it certainly is sad. Certainly, Charlotte. And then Rockford says, don't get me started on Sheree's teams. Yes, well, I think anybody who's been in the chat have seen the back and forths between Rockford and Sheree, and it's only going to get worse now that baseball season is starting again. Charlotte says, Unfound is the only podcast I know of who spotlights their assistants, and I think that's really good. I think they deserve it. Sheree says, you never know when you might need a good attorney, Rockford. Or have decent one to manage your expectations. So, okay, Charlotte. So that is my answer to your question. Let's just give it some time, Charlotte. Let's just give it some time. All right. I want to talk first, being that I've been talking so much about Sheree over the last 10 minutes. I'm going to go to a disappearance that is that she knows very well because what did you say, Sheree? That your daughter lived in the same complex where Caleb Harris went missing at Texas A&M in Corpus Christi. Is that true? Maybe I know you're I don't want you to write paragraphs and paragraphs, Sheree. But it's true that your daughter lived in that same complex at one time, maybe a few years ago. So I'm going to now talk about the disappearance of Caleb Harris. Gotten a lot of attention. So I will try to give you my best insight into this. So here we go. Police and other agencies are searching for 21-year-old Caleb Harris, Caleb Harris, a Texas A&M University Corpus Christi student. Harris was last seen taking his dog out just before 3 a.m. on Monday at his Cough campus apartment. So this is a week ago. So right about the time that I was rolling into Renfrew, PA last week, he, and being an hour earlier, he was going out with his dog and then going missing. The U.S. Coast Guard, Texas Search and Rescue, and local dive teams have joined the search for the New Braunfels native. Authorities in Texas are searching for a missing college student who disappeared early Monday morning in Corpus Christi. Caleb Harris, 21, was last seen near his apartment in the 1900 block of Ennis Jocelyn Road near the campus of Texas A&M University Corpus Christi, where he is a second-year student. Harris took his dog outside his off-campus apartment around 2:45 a.m. local time, a Snapchat ping recorded. The student left behind his ID and car keys, his father Randy told the station on Tuesday. By 3 o'clock, his phone was dead. Randy said he was totally gone. He doesn't have his wallet. He doesn't have any ID with him. By Wednesday, Caleb's friends joined local authorities in a search for the New Braunfels native. As soon as I found out about it, I got all of my work out of the way and set aside all of yesterday to spread the word as much as I can, basically through this entire zip code. Student Logan Johnson said about the search. On Thursday, additional agencies, Thursday, 4 days ago, additional agencies, including the U.S. Coast Guard, Texas Search and Rescue, and local dive teams, joined the effort to find Harris. We're using the cadets that we currently have in the academy to physically get their boots on the ground and canvas the adjacent fields. Right now, as of early afternoon, we don't have any updates, but we're working really hard to find him. Harris's father is among those who are concerned about Caleb's sudden disappearance. There's nothing there that would cause us to believe he was in any danger of leaving. He had actually ordered his food for the next day for school. Harris is 5'11", 180 pounds, was last seen wearing teal pants and a white shirt. Authorities are asking anyone who may have information about his disappearance to contact the Corpus Christi Police Department at 361-886-2600. And as you can see, as Sheree, my daughter lived in 1501 and Caleb went missing from 1502. So very, very close. And Sheree has already explained to me that this is not the most dangerous area. Sheree did say that there is maybe some bodies of water in the area, but I don't know if it's like immediately next to the apartment complex. And I have to admit, I've not looked at a map or anything. So I will tell you, and this will not be news to Sheree because I kind of told her what I'm thinking on this at this point. Why do you go out? You know, this is what we try to avoid on the regular episodes, is trying to get into the missing person's head. The fact is we can't. There's no way to do that. And even if, I mean, as you know, just within the last 6 weeks, we had a disappearance where what was the missing woman's name? Let me get it right here. It was Kim Moreau. No, not Kim Moreau. It was, I think, Lisa Marie Green, who, remember, she wrote a note. Then she was there with her father and other people, and then she was missing. And even in something like that, even though she wrote it, and it's her handwriting, and she seems to be very lucid when she wrote it, that doesn't mean it's the truth. This is what makes this so tough. So even with Caleb, this is why it's so difficult. We try to avoid getting into a missing person's head. We can certainly get into suspects' heads because we can at least go from the idea, well, these people don't want to get caught. And we can kind of go from there. Now, what that may mean could mean a lot of different things. But usually we can pretty much go by that. But missing people, we don't know what they were thinking. We don't know if they were seeing reality as it is, or were they on drugs or anything else. What I would want to know about Caleb is what kind of, was he into legal or illegal drugs and medication? Was he taking anything? And there is a disappearance that I think some of you know about, although maybe probably not all of you know about, was the death of Kelly Nash. This was a young man who was living with his girlfriend or fiance. They're living together. And he had been sick. And she had gone to bed. And she said that he was still playing video games or something. Although she could hear him out there. She was like sneezing and coughing and everything. She falls asleep. She wakes up the next morning. He's not there. It's like, well, where did he go? His vehicle was still there. And eventually he was found, I forget how many miles away. It was at least 1 mile away. On a cold night, seemingly, he had taken his gun, walked along this road at like 2, 3, 4 in the morning, very cold out, shot himself in a lake. Now, there is nothing, of course, logical about that. How do you go from playing video games and everything to end up being dead in a lake? And of course, as you would probably expect, there's all sort of rumors to this day. I forget how many years ago this happened. All sorts of, well, did she shoot him? And did other people help, cover it up? Was he walking along there and somebody picked him up? There are no facts to support that. Nothing. So that is something that comes to mind regarding this disappearance. But something else that comes to mind is something that just happened within the past year. And me and my fascination with plane crashes and anything weird in aviation, like this door that blew off the plane. And then maybe within the last couple of days, you saw this plane that went off the runway and got stuck. But if you will remember from last year, there was a pilot who wasn't even flying the plane. He was kind of in the jump seat. He was kind of getting taken from one airport to the next. So there were two pilots, pilot, co-pilot. This guy was sitting in the jump seat, which is like behind the pilots. And in the middle of the flight, this guy in the jump seat actually tried to turn off the engines. And in that particular plane, there were like these two levers, like between the pilots, like up on the ceiling of the cockpit. We had to do a couple things, and then you pull these things, and you could just shut the engines off just like that. Boom. Luckily, one of the pilots stopped him from doing that. And then he got escorted back into the cabin. And then even when the guy was sitting back in the cabin, he actually tried to open like the entryway door because he wanted off the plane so badly, even though it was still, up there at 15,000, 20,000 feet. And eventually he told the guy told the flight attendant that, you're going to have to handcuff me or I'm going to try to get off this plane. And that's exactly what they did. And now this guy has been charged with multiple. I mean, however many people were on the plane, that's how many people he was charged with attempted murder or something like that. And if he's convicted, rest of his life in jail. And of course, because this happened on a plane, it's a federal crime, not a state crime. It's a federal crime, which makes it even worse. And by all accounts, though, this guy was salt of the earth, good guy, good pilot and everything. But what had happened? He was having some stress issues in his family. He was having some stress issues with his job. And he had decided in the couple days before that to kind of cut loose with a couple of his buddies and do mushrooms. And it seems that he was still feeling the effects of those mushrooms, even though he seemed fine and everything. He got on that plane. Well, what he now says, now that he's in custody and the reports are getting about what he actually told cops, because he didn't even try to deny it or anything, that he thought that him being in that plane wasn't real, that being on the plane was a dream. And he wanted out of it so bad, and he thought the way to get out of this dream was to shut off the engines of the plane. And then once he got taken back into the passenger area, once again, he thought that by jumping out of the plane, opening the door and jumping out of the plane would be a way for him to get woken out of this dream or a nightmare or whatever he was in. Of course, the problem was it was reality. So I have to admit, I don't know anything about Caleb Harris. I'm not seeing anything on Web Sleuths. I'm not seeing that he's on drugs or anything like that. But this is the kind of thing that comes to mind with Kelly Nash's death, with Caleb Harris's, and given what has been going on in the culture over the last 15, 20 years, I think that these kinds of disappearances are becoming more common. Why? Because, well, drug use of certain things is not considered, doesn't have the, what is it? What word am I looking for? Doesn't have the, there's not as much of a negative connotation with some of this stuff anymore. The problem is just because the culture doesn't have as negative a connotation of certain things anymore doesn't mean that those things aren't harmful anymore. The fact is, those things don't change. They're still harmful. Just because a larger group of people now accept it and do it, or don't do it, but accept other people doing it, doesn't make it any less harmful. It's just the same. And this is what kind of strikes me with this. Whereas my impression, my opinion, the way I look at this, and I realize I'm 53 years old, and I'm getting closer and closer to one of these being like angry old guy. I just don't think that 20 years ago you would have ever heard of a pilot getting on a plane or a pilot who was doing mushrooms, or 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Certainly pilots drinking, and we still maybe have one of those stories popping up once in a while. But I've never done, as you know, all know, I've never done any of this stuff and never will. But the thing about mushrooms, as I've heard, is that, you can be tripping on them. A stigma. Thank you, GS. I knew somebody. The stigma. Thank you. Good one. Excellent. Gold star for you, GS and SD. Thank you. Stigma. The thing I understand about mushrooms is that, they can give you a trip. You kind of come down off of it, then out of nowhere, it can come on again, which is the last thing you want if you're going to be flying a plane or operating heavy machinery and things like that. So this going back to Caleb Harris, this is what kind of hits me. That, for example, when he walked his dog, did he think that was a dream or did he think it was reality? You also have to remember he ordered this food. Did he do that thinking it was reality or did he think that he was doing that in a dream? Also, he was getting ready to go fishing. Seemed like he had the next day or the coming day, being that it was already into the next day and early in the morning. It seemed that he had that coming day already planned out to go fishing and everything. Was he doing that because he thought it was reality, or did he do that because he thought he was in a dream? I know it's just like I said, I don't know if you get this. And I realize a lot of people have been talking about this. I don't know if you get this kind of insight anywhere else. I have no idea. This is what just comes to me. Because to believe that he walked his dog and then went back out and got attacked at 3 a.m. or something is just not believable. Hello, everything. What's going on, everything? Where you been? A little late tonight, everything, but that's okay. So I think this is why, what do I keep saying? A few of the takeaways that I always want you to have for Unfound. What is one of them? Disappearances are about people. They are not about circumstances. And so when I think about Caleb Harris, we need to know more about him. Just like from, what was that? The Johnny Roop kid from a few weeks ago. By the way, I looked into that. He's still not come back to Virginia. I think he's just left his life. He's out in Missouri. Who knows what's going on with him? But we have to also think about Jason Landry that way. In general, seems like a good kid. But on the other hand, as we found out, he was having this conversation with this other friend of his, and all they did was talk about not doing heroin or anything, but getting high on certain things. And so then he gets into a wreck and might have gone off naked. Shouldn't surprise anybody. The only question now is, why hasn't he been found yet? So this is everything that comes to me regarding Caleb's disappearance. Like I said, I've not looked at the map to look at the surrounding area. Of course, Cherie knows this area way more than I ever will. Maybe she wants to type out a few things there to explain that. But this is what comes to mind. This doesn't feel necessarily like a suicide, but it could have ended up as a suicide because no different than this guy was on this plane. Had he accomplished that and shut off those engines, now maybe the pilots would have been able to land it, glide it in somewhere, hopefully, luckily. It's not like it's going to drop like a stone out of the sky. Maybe they could have even, if they were high enough, they could have even restarted the engines, but we all know it. You don't do that. So had he accomplished that and the plane had crashed and everything, this would have been his suicide, but he's murdering everybody else. But he doesn't think he's doing that because he doesn't think it's real. And that would have been, had it happened that way and everybody would have been killed on that flight, that would have been a really interesting NTSB investigation. Listening to the cockpit recorder of a guy just willingly shutting off the engines and what he said about, I need to get off this plane and everything. So that's where I am. Let's see what everybody is saying. Stigma, yes. Charlene, what's going on? Charlene, good to see you. Rockford saying about Caleb Harris. Got some Michael Negretti vibes from this one too, UCLA case. I know that one. Charlene, hi everyone. Hope you're all having a great. It's 2:03 a.m. in Tullamore, Ireland. But I wouldn't miss this awesome live show for anything. Well, we moved it up an hour, so that makes it maybe a little easier for you, Charlene. Good to see you tonight. And first thing my daughter says, there's a lot of water around there. The bay runs right behind the complex. All right. So Cherie's saying that the water is definitely in play. Jasmine says Kelly Nash was 2015. I urge everybody, if you've never heard about the death of Kelly Nash, when this live show is over, if you're listening to this on Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, go read about his death. Even though it's not a disappearance, it could give you a lot of insight into disappearances. Called up, remember the young pilot guy who did jump off the plane last year? I do. I think I do. Call Dove. Yeah, was that a straight out suicide, or did he think it was reality or dream? I don't know. Kathy was sleeping downstairs, so his relationship with his girlfriend may not have been good. He left in his pajama, walked to the lake. He was on camera. Yep, that's exactly what happened, Kathy. Stigma. Once again, GSNSD, thank you for finding the word for me. Hazel, thank the drugs, alter state of mind. It's not surprising that people are doing simply crazy stuff. Yeah, thank you, Kathy. Sure, no, because 30 years ago, you didn't do those things in public. You did them in a field with your buddies. Yeah, now we have licensed pilots doing them. Rockford, the Bay detail negates my DeGretti analogy. On the drug angle, the kids in the 60s and 70s may be thinking today's generation is tame. I bet they disappeared back then, too, with much less coverage. No doubt about it. I will tell you this. I have two brothers and a sister who are like 20 years older than I am. And I don't think I'll get in too much family trouble by saying my sister was straight as an arrow like I am. Still is. She still is. My brother's a little more adventurous. And I will tell you that one of my brothers went to Oregon where marijuana is legal and did imbibe, I think, a little bit. And he was known to do those things back in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s as well. And he was like, man, it's not even close to the same. The potency and everything else. Just now, maybe because he's like 50 years older or something, but that's what he would say. So it very well may be they did these things, but things are so much more concentrated and scientific and everything. And I would have to say that maybe for mushrooms and other things as well. He had a few internet issues from some dropouts. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, everything. What was the other case where the guy walked off with his dog and disappeared? Not coming to my mind, Rockford. The real, I can't still believe Nancy Reagan's Just Say No campaign was the most rational one we've ever had. Now mine is just an unpopular opinion. Yeah, going back to Robert Downey Jr. at the beginning of the show tonight. His life improved when he decided that he didn't need any of that stuff. And I think any previous addict will tell you, my life is so much better now that I don't do that stuff. There is no upside. There is no upside to any of it. If you have any addictions going on in your life, except for Unfound, of course, there's no upside. And I remember Glenn Hues, who I just saw for the second time in concert. He was a huge drug addict. I mean, he says he remembers the 70s, doesn't remember the 80s. I mean, his career was nowhere in the 80s. In a decade where he could have done very well if he was sober. With his talent, his singing and everything, he would have just been unbelievable. But because of his addictions, he really didn't get his act together until like the early 2000s. Now here he is at 72, 73. Sounds fantastic, looks fantastic, just a great guy and everything else. But I saw an interview, coincidentally, that he did in Australia where he was talking about drugs and being an addict and all of that, and seeing many of his friends die of addictions and other people not dying, but being totally enslaved to their addictions. And he kept saying it. There are no winners. There are no winners. So it's something. Rockford, you thinking of Chase Lackey? He did go missing, I think, with his dog, but I don't think he was on drugs. Shri is reminding us all that this disappearance happened 10 miles away from where Bradley Brooks disappeared. Remember, his car was found along the edge of the water. Rockford, yeah, Chase in Texas was Dealing weed, sending an email to California. The stuff on his coffee table was rearranged after he went missing. That's exactly right, Calvin. So that is Caleb Harris. That's my insight. I'm just reading what all of you are reading. I haven't spoken to his family or anything else. I, of course, hope that he will be found alive. But if he isn't, and this disappearance goes on for a year or two, maybe we will be visiting Caleb's disappearance. And of course, we can't. What was that guy's name? Tyler. Was it Tyler Harrison? It wasn't Tyler Harris, was it? Remember the guy who was married? He was with his wife and a friend of theirs, and then he went missing. Kind of same circumstances. And he's still missing. And I want you to know that's a disappearance we've tried to cover. But really, anybody connected that is not doing any interviews anymore. Maybe Tyler Davis was his name, I think, right? From Ohio. So that kind of reminds me of Caleb's disappearance as well. So I will try to keep tabs on it. Let's move on to this. I've been wanting to get to this. Australian cop who is a murderer. Yeah, there you go. Tyler Davis. Thank you. The Australian police on Tuesday, this goes back to February, said they found 2 bodies in the New South Wales town of Begonia. The real, you can let me know if I'm killing these names. During their search for same-sex couple Jesse Baird and Luke Davies. This comes days after NSW police officer Beau Lamar, who reportedly once dated Baird, was charged with their murder. Remember, this came up a couple weeks ago, and then I had to find the article. The police believe they have found the bodies of Baird and an entertainment journalist and his boyfriend Davies, who was a Qantas flight attendant. The pair had been presumed dead. The detectives investigating the case, which has gripped Australia, and is believed to be the first suspected murder carried out by an NSW police officer in decades. I want to come back to that. On Tuesday afternoon, said that the crime scene had been established at a second property in rural Bungonia, around 160 kilometers, which is what, 95 miles, 100 miles southwest of Sydney. We believe we have located 2 bodies. The families have been notified. We are very confident we have located Luke and Jesse. The bodies were found in a surfboard bags under a fence at a property in rural Bungonia, and attempts have been made to cover them. Attempt had been made to cover them with rocks and debris. The bodies were discovered 4 days after Senior Constable Lamar, 28, was charged with their murders and cooperated with the detectives. Police Assistant Commissioner Michael Fitzgerald on Tuesday morning said that it was the first time since he had been arrested that the accused willingly told us information. The real, everybody should know the real is from, lives in Australia. She is Australian. She's saying, I'm not far from there right now. Interesting. Thank you, the real. Doherty said that the police would allege in court that there was some type of relationship at some stage. Relationships are killers. Between the NSW officer and the TV presenter, the relationship did not end well. Understatement of the year. The police believe that the pair was killed on February 19th in Baird's inner city home in Paddington, and that the 2 surf bags have been used to transport the deceased couple in a white van to the rural property where the bodies were found. So far, the investigation also found a bullet matching Lamar's work-issued gun, a significant amount of blood, and upturned furniture in Baird's home, where they believe the murder took place. On February 19th, Baird's neighbors heard gunshots, but they were not reported until days later. Lamar made partial admissions about the alleged murders to an acquaintance who said to have accompanied him to a separate property in Begonia, not where the bodies were found. The officer had left his female acquaintance after breaking the lock on the property and returned around 30 minutes later. Police believe the acquaintance, whose identity was immediately clear, was an innocent agent, and said that she was fully cooperating with the officers. Now, of course, this is a big deal, as stated, and I think maybe it was the real or another of our Australian viewers who brought this up. I'd not heard about it at the live show from a few weeks ago, but I did look into it, and it's been on my agenda for the live show. Just didn't get to it like last week. But what really sticks out to me in this article is that this is the first murder. Of course, maybe he's going to plead not guilty and is going to go to trial, but we know what we're saying here. First murder committed by a cop in decades there. It would seem to me Now, granted, when we start looking at crime statistics between Australia and the United States, really not comparable. But this is the first murder committed, as far as they can remember, by a cop there, at least in New South Wales, in decades, where it seems, my perception is that as far as police officers go in the United States, police officers here in the United States are killing people in their lives like every week. It seems. So it's interesting. Why is it? What is it about? And I don't even get into the gun topic. I don't think this has anything to do with guns. I think we more have to look at what is it about being a police officer in Australia that keeps them from murdering anybody, and what is it about the United States in which police officers are involved in so many murders? And I don't mean the kind of corruption, killing people, killing somebody they've pulled over for speeding and covering up. I'm just talking about the people in their lives. Officers, we've had some well-known like murder suicides between officers. The couple was like, they were both officers and shot one, killed the other, whatever happened. We have a lot of that go down. So what is it? What's the difference between being a police officer in Australia and one in the United States that makes officers in the United States more likely to kill people in their lives? We might also look at, could it just be that the types of people who are becoming police officers in the United States are different from the ones who are becoming police officers in Australia? Because we have to realize something. Stress is everywhere. Stress is everywhere. And being a police officer, I'm sure in Australia, even though once again, they have a kind of a different thing going on with crime that we do in the United States, it's stressful. Even though, they have break-ins there too, and they have they have car chases there too, and they have domestic violence calls in that country too, where anything can go bad at any time. So what is it? And as I've stated, and here at Unfound, we are not pro-police, we're anti-police, we're realistic. But as I've made the argument at least one time here recently on the live show, and I've written about it in the blog at Patreon, patreon.com/Unfound podcast, is maybe we need to take a deeper look about the people who are, some of them, not all of them, surely not, but the people who are becoming police officers in the United States and why they're choosing to do that. The big problem I think we have in the United States, one reason is could be because even though there are police officers can get paid very well. If you're a city police officer, for example, in Tampa, in Las Vegas, LA, you can get paid very well and retire after like 25 years or something. Even so, we don't have valedictorians and salutatorians and people like that who do really well in school and those things. Those are usually not the people who become police officers. Not saying that people with not regular IQs can't be good police officers, but you have to do that. We have a system where the people who do the most in school, the smartest, the most intelligent, maybe you might even say the hardest working and everything, what do they want to do? They want to go into Wall Street. They want to be lawyers. They want to be tech CEOs and things like that. So, and as I've stated, this is very anecdotal, but two of the worst, not in the top 10, two of the top 10 worst guys I knew in my high school from the 1980s both became police officers. Now, is that a coincidence? Is it anecdotal? Is there something to that? I don't know. And I love Dr. Teleska. Going to be with her Thursday. Love her. Fantastic. Totally respect her. Everything else. But I would say we have to remember that I'm talking about more recently. We have to remember not the Dr. Telesko. I think the type of person who becomes a police officer now is different than the type of person who became a police officer in the 1970s. Pretty sure. I think that's a huge factor in all of this. I really do. Now, I don't know. I can't speak for Australia. Not my country. Never been there. May never get there. Never going to know that country well enough to make a comment. But being here in the United States, I think I'm educated enough and experienced enough to make that comment. I just think we get a different type of person we have more of the wrong type of person who is becoming a police officer now than we did 50 years ago. That's my assessment. Let's see here what everybody's saying. The 80s, U.S. police treat citizens like enemy combatants. Well, sometimes. Dare I say, some citizens sometimes deserve it. But I agree with you, the 80s, that we have all these cameras and everything. It does seem that more police officers these days are more likely to power trip. Maybe it's just because we have cameras, we're catching that. Maybe this has been going on since the 1920s. I don't know. But wow, there do seem to be a lot of police officers that for no reason tend to really go power tripping on people for no reason. So I agree with that. United States just seem to have so much more of everything. Yes, we do, Hazel. Missing people, murders, school shootings. Yeah. Syrian size population are major factor. Much more anger here, maybe. It says lack of feeling safe where you live. Rockford. I think it's also about mobility. Criminals move freely among jurisdictions, which can be like entering into another country. How many Americans really know their neighbors? Well, I will tell you this. I know my neighbors who occasionally live next to me, Rockford, and I don't like them at all in Florida, the condo next to me. The real, every time a police officer has to shoot their gun over here, it's like to get covered by the media. Even when they have no choice, the incident goes under the microscope. Yeah. Hazel, I agree. Camera catching everything brings it to the fore. It does. But just stuck out to me when I read that. Now, is that somebody's just a perception, or is that fact that a police officer hasn't killed anybody like privately in decades? Maybe some Australian wants to actually look that up and see if that statistic is true. I know enough about reading U.S. news to know that it's certainly not true here in the United States. It's not even close. All right, so there's that story. What are some other things? I got a Panky letter. I put it in here. What can I read from it? This first page, a lot of words on it. And this is still a situation. You should know my assistant, Carrie. You remember her from the first interview. She's done a little work for me, and we may be getting all the discovery and everything from one of the Panky trusts, because Steve keeps bringing it up in these letters. And being that I don't have the information in front of me, I don't know if he's telling the truth or not. So because I don't know whether he's telling the truth or not, I can't read parts of these letters. Because he says, well, if you look in the discovery, you will see. Well, I haven't looked in the discovery yet. And of course, getting the transcripts of the trials, financially probably prohibitive, but that's why I've had Carrie. And Carrie did send me some things that I need to look at when I have some time. And thank you, Carrie, if you're out there listening or watching tonight. So, he did write me. I will say what he wrote at the beginning. And this just gives you an example, just so you know I'm telling the truth. He says, hi, Ed. Thank you for your letter and info. I hope you're able to get at least the first 1,000 pages of discovery. It's huge. And he says, I appreciate your letters. And then from there, he did answer one of my questions in here from my letter. Let me see. These lights, it's just weird to read. Let me see here just for a moment. Yeah, he's talking about a theory that a particular police officer had. I don't know. Like I said, being that he says it's in the discovery and I haven't read it, I can't read it. He was talking about another inmate that I looked up, and he said then about this, as I stated from a couple weeks ago, there's somebody else who has reached out to Steve, some TV show that has reached out to him about talking to him. And like I said, did I say this last week or the week before, that I got to talk to them as well. And I have to admit, I might have just gone and talked them out of doing any production at all. When they found out that there were already two series or shows that were going to be coming out here in 2024, the guy was like, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yeah." So that might not. I mean, they might just talk to Steve anyway, just to see what he has to say. But I might have inadvertently just turned them off to the whole thing. So, unfortunately, that's all I can say about this. He comes up with a theory here, having to do with Sun Valley, Idaho police. And like I said, he's talking about FBI polygraphs about certain people that I can't talk. Once again, I don't want to mention any names here. He's talking about a certain person who lied about what he explained in the previous paragraph. He's talking about a 1995 run-in with a particular police officer. And, the guy saying something that wasn't true. So, like I said, I don't know if I'm ever going to get the discovery of the transcripts or not, because there's so many pages. And, I just don't know how much, if I really want to put any money into it at all. Let me see what everybody's saying. Much of that, it is here. There's so much disrespect for the police officer, Charlie Boiler. That's true. That's true. That's true, Charlotte. But I think that goes both ways. All right, let's talk about this. Here's a guy we haven't talked about in a while, and that would be Phil Klein. New statement from just a couple of days ago, and I'm just going to read it to you. Over the past week, we have received press inquiries into the rumors of this firm entering into a lawsuit under the Texas Open Records Act with the city of Abernathy, Texas, in the Tom Brown case. We can confirm the rumors to be true. This past November, so November 2023, we were advised by state law enforcement that Michael Crane, this is the guy who was on the radio show with that host, he reported himself to be a former state investigator, quote unquote, and a former Navy SEAL to the public and former employees on a radio show, was employed by USA Investigations of Lubbock, Texas. According to state records, he still is. As well, the company's president is Dwayne Reed. According to government documents, Mr. Reed is also the police chief in the city of Abernathy, Texas. Now, I'll agree with you. I'm not a big Phil Klein fan, but this does sound weird. I'm not even saying this is the reason they're going after these open records or anything, but just on its face, this seems weird. So you have the chief of police who then runs a business, like a private investigation business on the side. This seems weird. I don't know if it's technically illegal. I'm not alleging any illegalities, but just as an American citizen, this just sounds weird. Chief of police, but also as a business, it's kind of like double dipping. And, would you be able to be objective and everything? That there might be not any legal concerns, but there might be some ethics concerns, so there's that. In further examination, it was determined that Pine Gregory, everybody remember him. Of course, we talked about him in the interview with Cherie today, who was involved in the Tom Brown case as a police officer and left under the suggestion of a Brady notice for his actions as a police officer for the Hemphill County Sheriff's Office, was employed with the city of Abernathy and under the management of Chief Reed. So I guess Pine is back in the law enforcement business. And as well as everybody knows, Pine Gregory found Tom's body. In December of 2023, this firm filed a 552 request for open records request, limited for certain documents on both Chief Reed and Officer Gregory. Now, this is where I start to get a little lost. I get that. I don't know. In January, we did not receive an answer within the 10-day notice period. In fact, we received zero correspondence. This firm filed a second 552 request once again. And again, within 10-day notice period, we received zero correspondence. Contact was then made with the mayor of the city and city attorney. We received an email from the lawyer for the city who said he would help with the matter. Then after 2 more weeks, we heard nothing after emailing the attorney and his paralegal. During the entire time, we heard nothing from the mayor of Abernathy. As well, the city attorney stopped all communications with us. We should all be so fortunate. This past month, we sent a letter to the Texas Attorney General in notification of the violation of the state-mandated time period and the state-mandated document return under law. The state gave as well clearance to file suit against the city of Abernathy for the requested documents and fully unredacted information. There's no appeal. The city of Abernathy will be responsible for all legal fees. We believe again that the employees of the government and their council work for the people of Texas. Ignoring a lawful filing and bringing down a shade of non-transparency creates more questions than answers, but that has been the problem in the Brown case. I don't know what they're trying to do here. I don't know. I don't know any more than any of you know. You know me. I have 324 other disappearances that are under my purview. And it's not clear. It's clear to me that they're surely not filing this, I guess, a FOIA because of Dwayne Reed being both the police chief of Abernathy and running this USA Investigations of Lubbock. It's surely not about that. Then what is it about? It's hard to say. Now, maybe they don't want to say. All it says is that, to read this again, this is Phil Klein who wrote this, so I'm just reading what he wrote. In December of 2023, this firm filed a 552 request for open records request for certain documents on both Chief Reed and Officer Gregory. What documents are they looking for? Now, I realize to this day, a lot of people are suspicious of Pine Gregory. And I think what you heard in my interview with Cherie today, she certainly got to know Pine better than I did. Right, Cherie? That's probably what you'd say, right? I realized there were a lot of suspicions for him, and I'm not saying he's a great cop, and I know he got fired and everything else. I just don't think he had anything to do with Tom Brown's disappearance. And on top of that, I don't think he knows what happened to Tom Brown. That doesn't make him a good cop. I'm not saying he shouldn't have been fired and everything else. It seemed that I don't remember Pine ever saying anything to me. And, Cherie, once again, if you're still in here tonight, he never said he didn't deserve to be fired to me. I don't remember that. So it's not like he, and he didn't file suit against Weld County or Hemphill County for, Weld County's where the Jamal Matthews case took place. What is he talking about? Phil trying to find a way to draw more money out of a tragedy? I don't know, Cherie. But at least to me, I don't know, maybe to you, Cherie, Pine Gregory never said that he didn't deserve to be fired. Not to me. I think I would remember that. I don't think he ever did that. So what's going on here? It's hard to say. This is and what if this is really truly, is this really about Tom Brown's death? What it's about? I mean, what are we going to say? What the police chief of Abernathy had something to do with that? I mean, where is this all going? It's just hard to say. Now, as far as this, I will tell you. Now, granted, we have not filed many FOIAs in Unfound's existence. Maybe the most well-known one is for Jennifer Perry, where I got like 600 some pages, and that just went as smoothly as it could go. But I will also tell you that we've filed FOIAs, and we realize what the law is, that they're supposed to get back in a certain amount of time, but they usually don't. And here's what I also know. Not one time have I ever thought about filing a lawsuit against them or filing something. I guess what I'm saying is that this seems overtly petty. I know what the law is. I'm not disregarding the fact that I'm not saying that Phil Klein's lying here. A very 10-day notice period and all. I get it. But we at least have some experience doing this over the last 7.5 years. And they get back to you when they get back to you. I don't know. I just don't know where any of this is. Now I will tell you, as Sheree talked about, we did do a FOIA on Pine Gregory. I don't even know if he knew that. I don't know, Sheree, did Pine even know that we did a FOIA on him? Because he had told something to both me and Sheree, and it was that, yeah, I was out that night, but we had a DUI pullover right there on the main strip of Canadian, and that's why I was in the area that night. And guess what? We did a FOIA, we got the police records, and he told the truth. He told the truth. He was on that call. Now, if you want to believe that the records were forged and everything else, then you can go up to Cookville and try to prove that. But if you're just going to say it because you want to think it, then I really have no respect for you. And I don't think anybody who is, wants to really base things on facts and logic and being objective on this stuff would have any respect for you either. You're just choosing to think something because you think something. So when it comes to Pine Gregory, he never denied. He doesn't deny, and he even explains. Yeah, he explained to me on the video. He went this way, this one. Yeah, and it was because we were involved in a DUI, and the fellow officer was taking the DUI driver to the jail, and I went out this way. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. It just happens to be that it was not too far from where Tom Brown got gas that night. I have to tell you. And I continue to believe that as much as finding those remains was helpful to Tom Brown's family, here's what I can tell you. Pretty sure. Pine Gregory rues the day, or to put it another way, hates the day that he found Tom Brown's remains for his own personal, everything that he's gone through personally since. Not saying he's a good cop. He certainly did deserve to be fired. Do I think he should ever be a police officer again? Probably not. But I also believe that he didn't want to find, not that he didn't want to find him, but the way it all happened and everything, it just made Pine Gregory's life so much more complicated. And of course, there's still the discrepancy between Phil Klein and Pine Gregory about, did Pine Gregory really stop people from looking on Lake Marvin Road in a certain area? Pine says he was never there. I think one of Phil Klein's employees said he was there, who then told Phil, and then Phil continues to believe that Pine says he wasn't even working that day. So I don't know where this is all going. My best guess is, like everything else, it's going to go nowhere. Just like the presentation from, when was it? 3 years ago, 4 years ago, went nowhere. You know what happened to all the gambling stuff? What happened to all of that? That Tom was tied up and he was murdered over a gambling, what happened to all of that? All of you people who believe that. You would think that'd be pretty easy to prove. And still here we are in 2024, no proof that any of it ever happened. Just like I believed back when it was brought up. I don't know. Let's see what Sheree has to say about this, because she has, like I said, I brought her up. What was he talking about? Felt trying to find. Never said that. He dodged media because he knew he deserved to be fired. That's what Sheree is saying about Pine Gregory. Good night, Charlotte. Thanks for joining in tonight. Sheree, Abernathy wasn't ever brought up on the first 5 years, so this seems out of left field. It does. Shree Pine actually asked me to do the FOIA. He really wanted to do whatever he could to clear his name. I actually did it the wrong first time, and he helped me request the information I was looking for. This is what we do at Unfound. We do not get caught up in the hoopla. We're not deep in the hoopla like Starship. Ruined his career and almost lost his wife. Deserves to be fired, and he knows it. And Shree has a comment that I'm not going to read, but yeah, you can leave that comment there, but I'm not going to read it, Shree, about that. Okay. I don't know. I don't know where this is all going. I think it's going to go nowhere. And I'm on the record. I don't know. Just no more bizarreness. All right. So that's that statement that came out. What else do I maybe want to get to here? I want to read about this missing runner. This is probably going to be the last. It's saving me. Yes, sure. Yeah. I want to read you this. I'm not even sure why I ran across this story. Of course, I'm always looking up missing persons, media, everything. That's what I do. This is what my dad's saying. Ed, you spend too much time working on that podcast. Well, this is what I'm doing, Dad. So I want to read this to you. A missing runner. And this just is an example of, once again, a search that you would think would just be so straightforward, and it's not. On July 4th of 2012, so coming up on 12 years ago, an Anchorage man named Michael Lemaitre, Lemaitre, Michael Lemaitre, went missing as he competed in Mountain Marathon, the grueling Seward foot race typically held on the 4th of July each year. Lemaitre was running Mountain Marathon for the first time. It was especially rainy, foggy, and slick that day. The 66-year-old businessman and grandfather was last seen about 3 hours into the race, climbing just shy of the race's turnaround point at an elevation of about 3,000 feet. Lemaitre never came down. An extensive search turned up nothing. No clues, no trace, no trail, an Alaska State Trooper spokesman said at the time. 9 years on, what happened to Lemaitre is still a mystery, but his disappearance prompted lasting safety changes to the way the race is run. The 93rd Mountain Marathon race will be held Wednesday in Seward after a year off because of the pandemic. So this is an article for a couple years ago. Lemaitre's story attracted widespread media attention, becoming one of the most well-known in a grimly extensive list of Alaskans who've disappeared into wilderness landscapes without a trace. His disappearance was especially striking because he had been participating in an event that each year draws tens of thousands of spectators to Seward and hundreds of runners onto the mountain itself. The mountain swallowed this man, a relative told Runner's World journalist Christopher Solomon for an extensive article about the case in 2016. After troopers stopped their search, family continued. Lemaitre was legally declared dead in October of 2012 after a court proceeding known as a presumed death trial. His wife sued the race and the Seward Chamber of Commerce for $5 million, alleging negligence and emotional distress. In 2014, the Chamber of Commerce settled with the family for a payment of $25,000. They didn't get their big payout. Calls to her for this story went unanswered. Lemaitre's disappearance changed the way the race operates. New rules were instituted, including one that says runners must now sign up a pledge saying they've completed the roughly 3-mile race course at least once prior to race day. Participants who don't make it to the halfway point within 1 hour are disqualified. Remember, he was only getting to the half point 3 hours. So I guess what they're saying is this guy should not have been running this race in the first place. And race sweepers now follow the last runner to the top of the mountain and back down. Though declared legally dead for about 9 years, Lemaitre is still considered a missing person by Alaska State Troopers. Being declared dead by the court system doesn't remove someone from the state missing persons clearinghouse, said Austin McDaniel, spokesman for the troopers. Well, that's good. Law enforcement has to place eyes on him alive and well, McDaniel said, or remains need to be found. A partial human jawbone was found near Tonsina Point, a few mountainous miles away in 2014. Despite speculation about whether the remains might belong to LaMatre, DNA testing found they instead belonged to a 39-year-old man whose last address was in Arkansas. That's interesting. Other remains associated with the man were found in the same area in 1997. No sign of LaMatre has been found. There is not an active search for him currently, McDaniel said. If new clues or evidence is discovered, troopers would evaluate new search efforts. Searches, they're the darndest thing. How does somebody go missing during a run? Now, granted, it sounds to me like I've already stated that this guy should not have been running this race. He was well behind what they consider to be a good pace for this race. Maybe he was doing it, to challenge himself and everything, but really, he was putting himself, maybe, of course, nobody could guess he would go missing, but certainly it sounds to me like a race that a 66-year-old should not be running for the first time, to the point that it could have been physically dangerous for him having a heart attack or something, no matter how well fit he might have been for 66 years old. But it's telling that he only got to the halfway point 3 hours in, and the new rules state that any runner, if he wants to continue the race, must get through there in an hour. That's a big difference. So, what could have happened? I guess we might have to be open to the idea. I mean, was he running along back down there and a bear popped out and he couldn't outrun the bear, and he maybe tried to run into the woods or something and the bear caught him? Certainly possible. It is Alaska. This isn't the Boston Marathon. So I guess we have to be open to that. I've not really checked the route or anything, but could he have gotten lost? It doesn't seem so. Once again, this sounds like a kind of race for runners like what the Pikes Peak race is for cars, where there's only one trail. You can't get lost. It's just one route up and one route back down. So I don't know. This is, of course, by this time, we have to believe that, if he's dead, that animals have gotten to him by this time. But this is, once again, one of those situations where we need to know more about the guy. Maybe we can track his family down and talk to them. This is one of those ones. We need to know more about the guy. What kind of guy chooses to run in a race like this? What was he saying about the race like this? How was he training for the race like this? Had he run any long distance competitions before? Was he familiar with the area? Was he from Alaska? This might help us at least to get into his head as much as we can, get to know him, and what exactly was his plan. Did he understand that he probably shouldn't be running this race? And I run into this in disc golf, that there are certainly, I play with men, so I only know about the men. There's certainly men out there who shouldn't be out there playing disc golf. There are men who are out there playing who, even though we're just strolling around a public park, there's certain people that I've played with who can barely walk around the park. Shouldn't be out there. It's a heart attack waiting to happen. Of course, none of those guys have gone missing, though. So maybe you all want to look that up. Maybe there's some deeper stories. Maybe you can go back, newspapers.com, to read a little bit about this. Once again, this is from 2012, and the guy's name was Michael LaMatre, Lemaitre. So, yes, saving you from defamation, Sheree. Hello, Jill. Well, better late than never, Jill. Good to see you. We've missed you in the think tank yesterday, Jill. It's presumed he just toppled over the edge somewhere, I guess, Hazel, but you think that would be a likely place to look, and they just didn't find it. But I agree with you. That would make sense. Check out the case of Dennis Arda, a Swedish military officer who disappeared on a run. Crazy story. Heard about it on a Brian Schaefer podcast, of all things. Okay, Rockford. I have not heard of that. All right. Let's get to this Friday's disappearance. Now, what's interesting about this is probably back in like 2020, myself or Emily reached out to the family of April Wiss, WISS, about covering her disappearance. We got no response. And then just kind of out of nowhere, it went the opposite way. Somebody contacted me about April's disappearance. That's how it works sometimes. And that is going to be the disappearance this Friday. April Wiss, she was 16 years old. This happened in Wichita, Kansas on January 11th of 2000. And her very best friend at the time, Amy, is the guest. We did that interview. When was that? Yesterday. And it went really, really well. Went for about, I'm editing it right now. I think it's going to be about an hour and 20 minutes. And she was a 16-year-old, and she was supposed to, accounts differ, kind of went back and forth. She was supposed to be testifying in a trial because she had had a relationship with a guy much older than her, and her mother found out about it and pressed charges against this guy. Well, other parents of girls also pressed charges against this guy, and he ended up going to jail for all of these crimes, and he just got out of jail at the beginning of this year, coincidentally. Well, April disappeared about a month before this trial was to take place, and the story was that she was actually staying with a friend of her mother's, and this friend of a woman, like in her 40s or 50s. And the woman said, yeah, April said she was going to go in the evening, was going to go walk over to this Walmart, come back. She was never seen again. So once again, you can start looking that one up for Friday. April Wiss, WISS. She is on the Charlie Project. She is on NamUs. Wichita, Kansas, January 11th, 2000. And her friend Amy will be the guest, and I don't have a title for this episode. I'll be working on writing it and recording tomorrow. So that's all I have for. Unfortunately, maybe we'll get to that next week. I didn't get to, what else didn't I get to? Didn't get to my the Uvalde stuff. That doesn't bother me so much. That's like a timeless topic. I can maybe get to that next week. So that's all I have for you for this live show tonight. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the great commentary, questions, and things. Please give this video a thumbs up, the show a thumbs up before you leave tonight. If you're listening to this as a podcast, please give this a nice review, this podcast a nice review on iTunes or wherever else. Yes, please keep your heads on swivels out there. Be safe. And you'll all hear me on Friday for the disappearance of April Wiss. And we'll see if I'm doing my live show from here or Florida next Monday. My prediction is I'll still be here because I don't think my dad's car will be fixed yet. Good night, everybody. And Charlie, say hi to the kids for me. See ya.